Hey guys and girls, I realised yesterday I always say guys, even though I'm not referring to guys. I figured I better clarify. This video is for everyone. I got a different snake out today. This is Herbie. He's an albino Darwin python. Beautiful little man. Probably one of my most placid snakes of all. Loves getting out. I'd say he's deep in shed right now, and will shed any day. And he loves being on me. Doesn't like going on the ground very much. He's a bit of a hugger. Anyway, just having a bit of reflection this morning and thinking about what I should talk about, and I came to the conclusion I'll probably talk about my journey with art, and in correspondence to that, my journey with substances. So when I discovered glass art, it was obviously through cannabis, which was a big catalyst as to why I did it anyway. I used to collect lots of different bongs, just cheap ones, agungs, cheap agungs and whatever the fuck else was on the market back then, about what, 10 years ago. Anything from happy high herbs was fascinating. And then I discovered a bit more of the underground glass art scene in Adelaide through a guy named Ryan. He had a shop in South Australia in Hindley Street, and it was, I can't really remember the name anymore, but yeah, it was like you had to call to get in there and shit. It wasn't open to the public really, but he had a bunch of different pieces from a couple of Australian artists in there, Vera and Nods, and maybe a couple of others, but there wasn't heaps of people back then. It was mainly Vera and Nods on the scene and a few others around Australia, but yeah, that kind of exposed me to the glass, and then I decided to take a few lessons with Vera. Did about 6 lessons with her, and then I decided I'd set up my own studio. I set up my first studio up at my parents' house in the garage there, just a small little shed. There's nothing compared to what I've got set up now. Just a torch and a kiln, the very basics, and that's how I started. But yeah, I was always smoking weed, and I would use weed to get into a creative state. And I'm sure there's a lot of artists out there that have the similar experience, that their art comes from their suffering in a sense, and sometimes us as artists are using a substance to get into a heightened state of mind. More often or not, that is the case when it begins, I feel. And then it's like a journey, because you kind of lose that over time. The substance doesn't really give you that same effect, and it becomes harder and harder, at least from my own experience. And this is just with weed for me. I didn't really use many other drugs to get into that state of mind. I did at one point use psychedelics to get into a heightened state of mind, but I would only really be able to achieve that through acid. Mushrooms kind of definitely put me in a higher state of mind, but they made me reflect a lot more on what was wrong in my life, and they were a lot harsher. And then acid was kind of like send me to a more spiritual dimension. It's hard to explain, you know, everyone has different experiences with different substances, but that's what it was like for me. And it would just kind of make me feel a lot more in my skin. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of uncomfortable times on acid too, but a lot less than mushrooms. I could seem to manage the trips a bit better. In some trips I just couldn't wipe the smile off my face. I just felt so aligned when I was on acid. But at a certain point in my journey, I realized that just through other people talking about their journeys, and it's a big catalyst why I do this today and talk about things. It's because when I would study other people, I studied, you know, Eckhart Tolle, Ram Dass, Terence McKenna, a lot of these psychedelic pioneers, And honestly, they paved the way, but you still have to learn from experience. And learn from experience I did. So I delved as deep as I could in that without, I don't know, just personally as deep as I could in that. And yeah, I was gonna delve deeper into the acid at one point. I remember I was gonna buy a vial. I was only just doing like tabs every now and then, but I found there was something there. Like it was giving me these crazy insights, these crazy experiences. So I was gonna buy a bottle, and then I was really into Ram Dass at the time. I found like I related to him a lot and his journey. And I found a talk called Here We Are Now, I believe it was called, on YouTube. It was about 2.5 hours long. And it had a crazy amount of information about his journey, about how he went from a youth all the way up to a certain age. And I won't go too far into it. You guys can have a listen to it for yourself. But at one point in his journey, he was doing lots of acid and wanted to stay in that heightened state, and kept trying and trying to find stronger acid, and kept fucking delving into that realm. And at one point he realized that it wasn't the right way, and it was when he went to India and met people who were in touch with their spiritual side, but they weren't using a substance to get there. They were in the flow state, but they weren't in it by getting high. And that's just putting it very shortly, you know. And whether you believe all this stuff or not, I don't really care. It's my own experience, and I have had internal and external experiences which have given me enough to have faith in this, and to, you know, live the life I live today. But that's where I kind of changed my mindset. I think I did acid maybe 1 or 2 times after that, and then I decided I want to try and develop these traits without substances, because I know it's possible, but I also know it's not going to be easy. But I better just start now. And that's what I did. And it was a journey, because I was struggling with my art. I'll be honest, like, there was really good times when I was in the flow state, but more often or not, it was like I felt out of alignment. I just wasn't feeling that good about it anymore. Like, I just would have these ups and downs. I'd only really feel good once I pulled off a nice piece, and the next day I just went straight back down. And it was a constant battle of that for a few years. But I pushed through, and I got pretty decent, but I feel like I was really just scraping the bottom of the barrel, and I wasn't really even that good within myself. So I had to take a bunch of time off recently just to actually get into that heightened state of mind naturally, which I find personally is through exercise. Wes Watson talks about it a lot. You probably see if you follow me on Instagram, I repost a bit of his stuff, but he kind of helped me understand that it's not just about going and doing a bunch of exercises to get big or fit or whatnot. That's just a byproduct of what the root of doing exercise is, which is getting into a better state of mind. And you know, some people do it for the latter, but for me personally, I'm not really doing exercise because I want to be like a fucking big crazy looking dude, which I wouldn't be opposed to, but at the same time, I'm doing it for the mental aspects. I find a lot more clarity living the way I do now, even though I work so much harder on myself each day, putting in repetition after repetition. I feel so much more clarity, and I feel way better. And that's from being aware of what I'm eating, being aware of where my energy's flowing. If I'm not getting up and using energy, then my energy is going to be negative. I just figured that out about myself, you know, and I'm definitely like I have addictive personality, and I have only learnt to transform that addiction into some healthier habits. People probably see me as a bit obsessive, but I've always been obsessive. It's just that now I obsess over things that actually heighten my state of mind, not lower it. So I just wanted to jump on here, share that with you guys. I don't really feel like there's a whole lot more to touch on that subject right now, but if anyone has any questions or anything, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'm gonna go eat some breakfast. I just finished up the morning run with the dogs, and I just wanted to do this before I ate any food while I'm still up in that nice heightened state. Give me something to yarn about. So yeah, hope you guys have a blessed day. Love and light. Herbie and I are going to go and eat a bit of food. Probably not Herbie, but the dogs and I will go and eat some food.